Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 20 years, you've heard of Counter-Strike. Whether it's that game your weird friends play excessively into the night, or it's the reason for your bad grades and lack of a girlfriend, the Counter-Strike franchise has been embedded into gaming and esports history for years. If by now you somehow have no idea what I'm talking about, and have never encountered at least one person online flexing over some subpar deke shot he hit, I'll explain it to you. Csgo is a 5v5 tactical shooter focused around one main game mode where the angry terrorist men want to blow up water fountains or a bunch of wooden boxes in the middle of nowhere, and the also angry counter-terrorists that really like those boxes do anything they can to protect them. Well, unless you're my teammates whose sole goal is to use me as bait and practice for their perfect flashbang placements. Every round you receive amounts of money to spend on guns and armor to use until you die. However, the economy in Counter-Strike is so much more complex that we'll have to cover it later in the video. Starting as a Half-Life mod in the late 90s and being bought by Valve, Counter-Strike quickly outgrew its parent game in popularity and has gone through 2 separate games and thousands of changes to bring it to the game we know today. We're going to look at the reasons why this 12-year-old tactical shooter is still topping charts with the rest of the giants of the genre, and what makes it so impressively addicting and fun to play. Counter-Strike is a pioneer of tactical FPS games, with features that stayed unique to the franchise all the way until Overwatch 2.
Who the fuck are you calling 9, bitch?
You are 9 years old.
No, I'm fucking 14!
30 seconds.
Decided they weren't making enough from Dota 3 and wanted a piece of the action. The dedication and patience required to improve in Counter-Strike is unrivaled throughout the FPS genre. So much so that most players need to practice daily and warm up even before entering a game. The game seems to offer the same controls as AAA titles, but once you go past the base level and dive deeper into the mechanics of the game, it quickly becomes a sprawling mess of features and techniques you need to wrap your head around. Most guns in the game require you to stand completely still to fire accurately, and the individual recoil patterns for each gun move in such a specific way that unless the RNG gods have blessed you, you couldn't hit the side of a barn door. The spray control, counter-strafing and reset timings are just a few things players spend years perfecting. I've got over 1800 hours in CSGO and I'm complete dog water.
Hey, let me get a minute. Hey, let me get one too.
Hey, let me hold one.
Yeah, you get that right there. What the dog doing?
The game's high skill ceiling allows its players to be constantly practicing and developing, with very visible improvements when in games. The balance of weapons isn't solely on weapon damage and rate of fire, but also how complex the mechanics of the gun is. The CT M4A4 offers the same magazine capacity as the T-side counterpart, the AK-47, yet the M4 takes 2 shots to the head of someone with a helmet and Kevlar, whereas the AK only takes 1. The difference between the two guns that balances this out is that the M4 is much easier to control with a very straightforward spray pattern when compared to the AK, giving both weapons reasonable positives and negatives. The AWP, for example, is a one-shot kill from the body upwards, but has to have the bolt pulled back between each shot, making it really easy to counter. And then there are the black sheep of the family. The P90s, auto snipers, and the 48 hours of the wild, wild west when the R8 was introduced. You could shoot down anybody with an $800 pistol to the chest in one shot. The usage of utility in the game is relied on to make tactical and specific strategies, with new lineups for each grenade being found daily to safely throw into a position that makes it harder for the enemy team to fight. I'm sure everyone knows about them, but pretty much there's 5 grenades in the game. The Kobe, the Fire Hot, please don't fucking stand in it, the Team Flasher, the funny name for a smoke grenade I can't think of, and the Epic Techer, CEO of Swag, Old Teammate Banner, the Decoy. Each of these can be used to create perfect executes into bomb sites or to delay pushes from T side. They can also be used to bait players into rotating early or to create an advantage for your team. This brings us on to the huge variation of playstyles and strategy players can implement into the game. From aggressive and brain-dead pushes that do nothing but make it an instant 4v5, to the carefully orchestrated executes onto bomb sites that should give you a round win, but no one decided to check on the wood, and some Ruski with a USP somehow kills 3 of you and no one trades it, and he saves an AK, and oh my god, we lose the game. How did we not molly under? Please, can we molly under next time, please? Anyway, the diverse and constantly changing tactics from each team often mean that despite playing the same 5 maps for years, no game feels the same. The adaptation players must do to counter the enemy team creates games that evolve in many different ways. The map design, although centered around 3 overall lanes of play, leads players to find new and advantageous angles to hold in order to catch people off guard and get easy kills. The maps ensure players have to rely on each other in order to effectively hold bomb sites, as most common positions can be peaked from multiple places at a time. The skill development needed to improve on CS expands into each map and its timings to key areas, specific callouts, predicting where the enemy's gonna be, and those quirky little KZ jumps I seem to fuck up every time I try them. The CS community is such a large part of the game. The thousands of workshop maps and skins on offer ensure that no one can ever get bored of the content that CS offers. If favoured enough by the players, these maps and skins can have a chance of being implemented into competitive play, allowing map makers to work with Valve in order to balance and perfect the maps. Renowned maps like Dust 2 and Mirage all stem from map developers and early iterations of the Counter-Strike franchise. But once you move away from competitive play, the workshop explodes with user-made content. Gamers like Surf, B-Hop and KZ are just a few things to play with, and they have loads of maps made for each. Sub-communities form within game modes and servers, in which players strive to achieve the fastest time possible on specific maps. And now for my favourite bit to talk about. Why Csgo is a pile of trash and how it shoves new players to the ground and kicks dirt in their eye. When playing CS for the first time, someone at Valve had the brilliant idea to subject them to hell on earth: casual game modes. This is the absolute pit of Counter-Strike, full of Russians, Smurfs, and those cool guys that spin on the spot doing lock onto the head across the map metas. The game modes in casual are uninspiring and forgotten. The free-to-play decision means that VAC is absolutely useless, and the only real taste of what the game is about is through 10v10 games on maps built for 10 players overall. There's mic spamming, griefing, and so much crying that it's enough to make any new player require a therapist after 5 minutes of game time. Hey team. Shut the fuck up! Okay. The tutorial hasn't been changed since the game came out, and there is literally nothing anywhere on the game to help new players figure out what the fuck is going on. Low ranks are constantly harassed and abused, and it's because they suck and should probably just go back to mini rush.
Ты заебал меня, блядь, конченый кусок говна тупого, блядь, шведская жирная, блядь, 150-килограммовая хуйня. Сука, сдохни, блядь, этой семье сдохни, блядь, дайте мне выиграть, ёбаную игру, блядь, сука, ты конченая, блядь. Я твою просто...
But overall, stepping into CSGO with little knowledge of the game will ensure that the uninstall button is clicked at a world record pace. VAC is so old and outdated that I'm sure veteran players would let Valve mine Bitcoin from their PCs if it didn't mean they had to play against cheaters. The report function never seems to work, and each Overwatch case I submit doesn't do anything. There is little to no consequence for cheating in low rank CS, and has caused both old and new players to retire the game for good. This game fucking sucks. But at the same time, if you say anything mean about it, I'll cry for hours about how wrong you are and how it's literally the best game on earth. So how how is this clunky, outdated game still topping charts across the world? Aside from its intensely addictive gameplay and the pocket casino that's the reason I'm losing my house, it's the pro scene. With $1 million prize pools and casters railing lines behind the desk between each round.
It was a no-scope! He didn't even... We had one button on his mouse stand.
The pro scene draws thousands of people on streams and filling stadiums to back their favourite players and teams. The active player trading between teams keeps gameplay in constant development, and the amount of new tactics and grenade lineups impacts regular games as every silver becomes a ROPS wannabe. Amazing plays are talked about and shared over social media for weeks after the game, and if it was so nuts, you'd get graffiti on the wall of the map you did it on. The pro scene is what makes CSGO feel like a real sport. The player trading, leagues and commentators all come together to help give the esport its name. Also, on a quick side note, Simple's a lucker, Kenny S is washed, and Stewie2K just needs to unbind W. Finally, we're going to look at the real reason CSGO is so great, and the only thing that actually matters in the game at all. The reason CS sees continued support throughout the last 9 years is, well, I mean, you know.
Money talk. Here comes the money.
Following the ARMS deal update in 2013, Valve realized they had struck gold with the CSGO skin market. So what did Mr. Gabe Newell decide to do with this crazy new idea? Well, he milked it dry until Valve was sitting pretty, making billions of dollars in passive income from a community that thinks that this is worth this. With this in mind, it's not surprising Valve manages to make absolute bucket loads of money from the CS community. But somehow, every time they release something, we just seem to gobble it up. I just don't understand. They're just so pig. Overall, CSGO is a brilliant game. If you have the time to put the dedication and hard work in required to get good, I'm sure you'll have a great time. On the other hand, if you want to just join a random lobby at low rank with friends and just fuck around the whole time until that one random cries so hard that you kick him, you can do that too. I've been playing CSGO for years, and honestly I can say it's probably the most fun I've ever had playing a video game. Well, at least the moments in between the long hours of crying after losing a game 16-14. There are so many aspects in CSGO to love and to hate, but the uniqueness and challenge of the game brings players back every single day, often reaching millions playing at a time. CSGO is fucking shit, but it's also the best game I've ever played in my entire life. So go and, you know, just go and check it out. Go do a little Tekka, go do a little Bob Swash, go do a little Gangnam Style, go do a little fucking rock your body, go do a little ooh, hey, you know what I'm saying, okay, brother. See you next week, guys. Hope you're having a good time.